Hey, Joe, it's good to have you here, my friend.
It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure, man. Thanks for coming to the show. I'm excited to be talking with you today. I know you have a great business. I know your business, and I know how wonderful it is. And I know how you started this business and how quickly you were able to grow this thing to where it is today. So I have you here today because I want everyone to really hear your story. You have a fantastic story. And the idea is for people to learn exactly how you started this business, how you got to where you are, the mistakes you made along the way, and what your goal is for the future. So if you can just tell me or tell the audience your background, your personal background. So where were you born? I know that you have an interesting name, right? Josino Ferreira, right? It's a beautiful name. Where were you born? How did you get started?
Yeah, absolutely. So my real name is Josino Ferreira, but I go by Joe. And I was born in Brazil, migrated to the United States in 1998. I was 8 years old, and we came for searching for opportunities. My father moved with my mom, but he stayed about 8 months and moved back to Brazil. My mom stayed as a single mom, raising my sister and I. And we've been here ever since, here in South Florida.
It's fantastic. Look, I talk to business owners like yourself, and for me, what's delighting, what's interesting, is, and it really defines the United States, right? It is amazing the immigration process where you come to this country, and the first thing in your mind is to be successful. One of the things that I always tell people, I said, you have an amazing, amazing advantage just only because you were born in the United States. Because the process that you and I went through, where you come from another country and now you have to start from scratch, learn a new language, learn a new culture, probably go to school here and make brand new friends. And all of that is something that is a disadvantage to you. And yet, as an immigrant, you took those disadvantages, put them to the side, and said, the heck with these. I'm going to overcome these and yet be better than the average person. And that's what I really, really enjoy when I see an immigrant. And again, that's my story as well. So I'm really excited as we go through this podcast today to talk about some of the details of. So your family, when you came to United States, did you come from a business type family? In other words, was your father, were your parents business owners, or did they had a job?
So my father, he was a business owner early in his life. I am the fourth child of his second marriage. So he was very successful, and he went through the divorce in which he ended up losing mostly everything. And by the time that I was born as the fourth child, he was trying to restart his life, and it never really worked well. Reason being, we came to the United States seeking a better opportunity. So I did have a desire to be a business owner, seeing my father or hearing my father's stories from when he was successful. But my mom was a cashier. She was the caregiver, the caretaker for most of my life since I was 8 years old. It was her by herself. And I watched her working in gas stations as a cashier. 2 jobs, 16-hour shifts, seeing her a few hours a day. We had Sundays together. But yes, I saw her working really hard to raise us.
That's amazing, man. That's amazing. And your parents are still alive?
No, my father passed away last year, and my mother passed away 2.5 years ago.
I'm sorry to hear that, man. Yeah, but you learned through them, you learned from them, whether they teach you or not. Again, as an immigrant child, you learn this, you see the struggles, and you learn that, and you want the very best for your kids. I know you just recently had a child, a son, so we're going to talk about that in a second. But congrats on that.
Thank you.
But you know, when you grew up and in that environment, right, you see your mom working incredibly hard, you see your parents working incredibly hard. When you grew up in that environment, were you motivated to start a business? Were you motivated to succeed? Did that have anything to do with where you are today?
I have to say yes, because watching her struggle builds a certain fire inside of you that you want to be better. My goal was to retire her and my father. Although he wasn't present most of my life, I always wanted to give back. And I get goosebumps talking about it because luckily I was able to do so for both of them. So seeing my mom struggle by herself here, and she didn't speak English, and 16-hour shifts, two jobs, it really created a desire for me to succeed. I started making sales when I was 12 years old in my birthday, where I asked my mom to buy me a box of Airheads. And she's like, "Is that what you want for your birthday?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely. I want a big box of Airheads so I can go to school and sell them." So I used to sell them for 25 cents each or five for $1.
That's a business right there.
That's a
That's your
business
first
right
business.
there. That was the first business when I was 12 years old. And then one of the teachers saw what I was doing, and she, told the principal and things of that nature. So they called my mom in, and they told me to stop selling the Airheads, but they gave me boxes of chocolates to sell for the school, to raise money for the school. So I used to sell, they used to give me a box of chocolate, and I used to sell chocolates around the school.
Those little things is what really instills that entrepreneurship inside you as a child, because you see the process, you see the profits. All of a sudden, you walk into school with a bunch of chocolates, you're going home, or at the end of the day, you have a bunch of dollars in your pocket. Now, chocolate is only one thing you can do with it, and that's eat it. Dollars, you can do a whole lot of things with it. And as a child, now all of a sudden, you're thinking about all of these dollars can buy me toys, can buy me this, can buy me that. And that really is the spirit of entrepreneurship. I myself, as an immigrant, I came here when I was 15 years old from a war-torn country. I'm Iranian. I'm from Iran. And when I first got here, it was the survival of the fittest type of thing. You have to survive. So I got a job at Dairy Queen making, minimum wage. I remember I was making $3.35. But that really taught me the biggest challenge for me when I had that job is to prove myself right. So when I finally, because I didn't speak any English, I didn't know the culture, I didn't know the character. So when I finally, and it finally came to me that I'm accepted, that I'm actually doing something right, is when my manager pulled me to the side about 3 months later and said, "I'm raising your salary from $335 to $350." A 15-cent lousy raise, which really presented nothing, dollars in my paycheck at the end of the week, meant the world to me, because all of a sudden it felt like I was actually doing something right, and I was actually accepted. It's working is really what it meant for me. So, did you end up going to business school or anything like that, or all of your business skills that you know today are based on what you learned from conducting a business?
I did go to business school. My goal was to be a plastic surgeon. I always wanted to study for medicine. I went to Florida State University in Tallahassee, and for the first 2 years, I was doing exercise science and health promotion to get into med school. But the counselor told me that I wouldn't be able to work through med school. So with that being said, my mom started getting sick. I moved back down to Miami, and I restarted for international business school. So I got my bachelor's in international business, but I graduated on top of my class. I had scholarships based on grades, and I didn't really know much about business, to be honest. I didn't know how to open a business. I didn't know how to balance my books. I didn't know how to incorporate an LLC, or pretty much most of the things that you need to operate a business. So it was nice to have the business degree, but the trial and error was definitely the best schooling that I had.
100%. I think what schooling does, I always say it's like if you're going to be a mechanic, the school gives you the toolbox. That's all. They don't teach you how to fix the car, but they give you a toolbox. Mm-hmm. Same thing with me. I mean, as an engineer, when I went to an engineering school, I got out and I got my first job, and they told me to design a circuit. I had absolutely no clue. I'm like, I didn't teach me this in school. So you start scrambling to learn it, because at the end of the day, same thing with business school. The business school or any school that's out there that's supposed to teach people about running or operating or starting a business, they don't do any of that. People don't even know, like you said, how to start a corporation. And that's true for majority of schooling and majority of different fields if you look at it. So at what age or what, obviously you started selling these chocolates in school and sweet per se, learning how to do business, but at what age or at what time did you realize that I want to be an entrepreneur? I don't want to be an employee.
That decision came from an event, or a series of events that happened at a previous job that I had, in which I wasn't being paid the compensation that was agreed.
Perfect.
So when I noticed that I was being taken advantage and that I was doing my end of the bargain and I wasn't getting paid what was agreed on contract, that's where the light started to spark, saying, "Hey, maybe you should go on your own. Maybe you should do this by yourself. If you're not being valued what you deserve." And I knew I deserved it because the numbers, I'm a very number oriented person. And I would see the numbers, I would see my production, and it was only fair to receive what we had agreed. So with that being said, that's where I was like, you know what, this is time. That's where All States Med was created. It was at that exact moment that I decided to start my first business, which is All States Med.
So at one point in your life, you decided that I'm better than where I'm at right now. In other words, yes, I'm doing a certain task, I'm getting something done, I'm excelling in my work, I'm doing whatever I have to do, but I'm not being appreciated. And I feel that I'm a lot better than where I'm at. And that's when you decided to go on your own and start a journey. Now, the journey of entrepreneurship is incredibly difficult. And I always tell people, I said, it's like climbing it. I mean, when you want to reach the top of the mountain, there's a lot of rocks and obstacles in the way. And a lot of times people fall, injure themselves. And after the second or third fall, they're like, the heck with this, I'm out. They turn right back down and leave. And that's the norm. But it is that 1% of the society that actually keeps on climbing, all bloody and all injured and bruised up, make it to the top. And I always tell people, I say, look, the road to the top is very bumpy, but the view from the top is incredible, right? So just make it up there. So that's exactly your story, right? So All States Med is the company that you started. We're going to be talking about that probably for the rest of this podcast. So you started this company. So first tell me, what was your first step you took? So you said, I'm doing this, I'm going to try to do this on my own. How did you go about it?
So I'll give you a little bit of background, right? So my mom became sick and she was in a wheelchair, and my stepdad lost his job. And my mom called me saying, "Hey, are you able to help us with the monthly bills?" And at the time I had a roommate, and I was, if I'm not mistaken, in my last year of college. And I was like, look, I can't afford to do both. So I let go of the apartment that I had with my friend, and I moved in with my mom to take over her bills. So I had a certain financial responsibility with them, which was a driving factor. I feel like when we do have responsibilities, it just drives us forward, right? It's a stress factor that pushes you forward. So I had that responsibility to help take care of my mother, which kept on driving me forward. And the first step after leaving the previous employer, as I felt that I wasn't appreciated and I knew the bottom line numbers weren't matching, because I did the math and I'm very good at it, is I went to vistaprint.com. It's a website in which they give you free business cards.
That's right.
Right? You just pay for the shipping. At the time, it was $15 shipping, and you get 500 free business cards. And right then and there, I had a logo designed on a website online that I paid about $10 for the logo, and I created the business card with my name. I picked out the name of the business, and we didn't have a website, didn't have a physical address. I just put the name of the city, Miami, Florida, and I got to work. That was the immediate first step. I printed out the business cards. While the business cards were shipping in is where I started researching how to file for an LLC. And I followed the steps, and I opened the LLC. When the EIN number came in, I took it to the bank to open a bank account. And that was the birth of All States Med. And when I named the company, I had this vision that we would be doing business in all 50 states. I knew the potential that it had.
So, it just reminds me, when I started my first business, I didn't have an office. I didn't have the funds to open an office. So I did everything you just said, the free this, the free that, pick up the phone and call this friend and that friend, do me a favor, do this for me, do this graphic design, make me a brochure. But to get an address for my business card, I actually went to one of those UPS stores. Back in the day, they used to call them mailboxes, etc. And I got a little PO box, right? And that PO box would actually give you a full address. It wasn't a PO box; it would actually give you an address with a suite number. So it would give you number, for example, 423, and I would put suite 423 on my address line, right? So people thought it was actually a real address. And the funny part of this is one day I had a client of mine that just, without letting me know, just showed up to this so-called address. Now, mind you, I actually had a job, had a day job. And I'm actually at work, and I get a call from this guy and say, hey, listen, you happen to have the world's smallest office. So I never forget that, but you got to do what has to be done to get the business started. So that's a great story that you just shared with me. So
Let me jump in there with
please do.
My first address was 1835 Northeast Miami Gardens Drive, Suite 180. That's a UPS store. That's exactly.
There it is.
I needed an address to file the LLC.
There it is.
So I got a UPS box.
There it is.
And I used it for about 3 to 4 years because before getting a warehouse, I started renting U-Haul space. So I would rent a little storage to keep the equipment. And then after the first U-Haul storage, we got another one, 10 by 10. So then it was 2. And then I shared a warehouse with a different company. And then I got my own warehouse. But I was still doing door-to-door. So I wasn't there to receive the packages. So I continued using the UPS store because they would receive the packages for me.
Yeah.
So yeah,
UPS
is great.
It is great. And you know what's crazy is listen to the commonality between two entrepreneurs sitting on across from each other. Commonality between the steps we took to the results we got, right? I mean, a lot of people want to have that they want to have that perfect thing in place before they launch a business. And I always tell them, I said, that is not what you need. You start the business and you grow with it. You know, you make it better and better and better and better. If you wait for perfection, you're losing a lot of market share because your competitor is already out there. You're trying to perfect your engine before you enter this race, but the competitor is already 2 laps ahead of you. So now when you enter with that perfect car, doesn't matter how fast your car is, you're already 2 laps behind. There's no way you're going to win this race. So get in as quick as possible, grab as much of the market share as you can, and then keep on perfecting it as time goes on, which is exactly what you did. That's very impressive. So you start this business. Now you're on your own. You're employee number 1. Business is up and running. What next? How did you start marketing? I know we have a Shark Tank thing to talk about here in a second, but how did you initially start marketing the business so that the heartbeat gets going? Money keeps coming in.
I had a goal of hitting at least 40 potential customers per day. So I would get in my car with brochures. Initially, it was just a business card. But as I made a sale, I was able to print out catalogs and brochures. And then another sale, get a website, and started perfecting it little by little, like you mentioned. Mm-hmm. And I would visit doctors' offices, surgical centers, and hospital every single day. I would drive up and down the state of Florida, organized manner, always making a route, knowing where I was going beforehand, and introducing myself and letting the potential customers know that I was there, that I would be able to take care of their equipment. And it was a daily task. I would answer the phone when it would ring in between offices. I would miss a lot of calls, but I would always call them back. I would come home every day and add every single potential customer to my spreadsheet where I kept all of the potential leads. I would constantly follow up, and it was before I did any online marketing, it was the door-to-door thing. This was a door-to-door business.
So you start building a business literally knocking on doors.
Literally knocking on doors.
Doctors'
on
offices,
surgical centers, and hospitals.
So tell me exactly, I want the audience to hear, what exactly is it that you do at All States Med?
So All States Med is a company focused towards the healthcare industry. So when I say healthcare, it's not the equipment that's used at home. So like the wheelchairs and the patient lifts and hospital beds for patients. We focus on the healthcare setting. So all of the equipment that's used in the hospitals, surgical centers, and doctors' offices of different specialties. So your plastic surgeons, your dermatologists, your cardiologists, your orthopedic surgeons, your family practice, general medicine, you name it, most of the specialties and the equipment that's used in hospitals. So your surgical tables, your operating room lights, your vital signs monitors, your patient monitors, your exam tables, your otoscope ophthalmoscopes, and so on and so forth. Company focused on the healthcare industry with a biomedical department in which we're able to do the maintenance and refurbish the equipment. So we can buy equipment that is used, refurbish it or recondition it, and then resell it in the market.
Interesting. And you learned all of these things, obviously, as time went on. In other words, you probably started with the whole slew of things that you just told me is not exactly what you started with. You probably started servicing or providing equipment much smaller list than what you provide today, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the beginning, what I would do is I didn't have any inventory. So I would ask the customers what they needed, and then I'll go search for it. So I had a spreadsheet that I will list. This customer is looking for X, Y, and Z. And then as I would visit other offices, they would say, oh, I have this for sale. So I would make a list of customers that were selling and list of customers that were interested in buying. And then I would try to
match them.
Perfect. And if that wasn't a possibility, I would search for somebody who will sell me that item that the doctor is looking for at a discounted rate so I can add a small markup. Before we had direct distribution lines with manufacturers, before we actually had like real inventory and things of that nature.
And I imagine there are other companies that have done this before you. How did you overcome that competition? Did you have to understand their pricing? Did you have to do something more than they were doing in order to overcome that?
I think that pricing is a big factor in every industry, but when it comes to the healthcare sector, it's a little bit beyond that. I think doctors buy from who they know, like, and trust. And I have a lot of customers that are willing to pay more just to deal with me because they know that what I promise is what's going to be delivered. There's a lot of different companies out there, but some of them are not going to own up to the equipment. They won't honor the warranty. They won't deliver in the timely fashion. A lot of them won't even pick up the phone. You'll be stuck speaking to a machine. If I would miss the call, I will for sure call them back. Till this day, we don't have any customers that are left behind or waiting on a warranty repair and things of that nature. We honor that customer service. And I think that's very important for every industry. Your customer is your boss. They're the ones who are paying your bill. So you have to take care of them no matter what. And that's the culture that I built in All States Med. Our customer comes first no matter what.
There is, what you just mentioned is the cornerstone of being successful in business. There was actually a study done where they took 3 individuals to provide a quote for a particular job being done. It was a home repair job, whatever it was. One of them was higher than everybody else. The other one was in the medium price, in the middle, and then one was by far lower. Now, the one that was by far lower price didn't win the bid, and the reason he didn't is because he was slower to respond to whatever request the client had. The client was like, "Hey, listen, I also want to add this. I also want to do this. Can you revise the quote and give me something different?" And the guy would take 3 days to respond. The guy with the highest amount was responding immediately, right away. Was like, "Yes, we could do that. I can actually send somebody over tomorrow to measure again and give you a quote right away." The guy, believe it or not, the one with the highest bid is the one that actually won the job, because it really comes out to service before pricing. And a lot of people go with the lowest price and then realize that they ended up getting something really cheap that had to be redone a month later or a year later. So same thing with you. So what you're winning with is with your service, with your customer service. You're returning calls. Nobody's complaining. We live in a world of reviews today, right? If somebody leaves a bad review, it destroys your business potentially. So it's all about taking care of the customer so that you have the highest reviews, because that's how people judge you in this day and age, right? So you're out there knocking on doors, right? And the key to entrepreneurship, the key to running it, to being better in a business is to never being satisfied with the status quo. Today you're making X, you're not happy. You're going to work harder. You're going to do something different so you can make X plus Y. And then when you're making X plus Y, you're still not happy. You shouldn't be happy because you want to make a whole lot more. And then you continue working harder and harder. And that lack of satisfaction with your business is what defines a more successful business owner versus not so successful, even though they're both in the same industry. you took the business of, All States Med outside. You got out of the hamster wheel and you went to Shark Tank. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So before the Shark Tank, well, I actually went. There was an open call in Las Vegas in 2018, and I went to the open call, and I was not selected. I was one of the business that wasn't selected, and there was hundreds of people doing a 50 seconds pitch, and out of that they would grab us a few and then do further interviews. But we weren't selected. I think I went a little early, but after 2021, when we were nominated as one of the fastest growing companies in the nation,
Wow.
that's where we started getting national attention, where news articles were writing about us. And we were doing sales in all 50 states and growing exponentially with 900.
All States Med.
All States Men, literally living up to the name. That's when I was very persistent. I wrote emails more than I can remember, and to hundreds of people looking for opportunities. To remember, I started All States Med with $5,000.
I love that. That's the part we missed. Yes, tell me about that.
Yeah,
$5,000.
I had $5,000 in my bank account, and that $5,000 was also to pay next month's rent. So it wasn't just injected into the business. That's what I had in total. And that $5,000 turned into one of the fastest growing companies in the nation. So I knew I had something special.
In how long?
We were nominated Inc. 5000 in 2021. So that was based on 2020. 5 years.
In 5 years,
5 years.
you went from $5,000 to being one of the fastest growing companies in America.
That's correct. In all industries, not in just the medical industry. The Inc. 5000 nomination is based on all industries. So we're talking about IT, medical, gas, you name it. All sectors of business in the United States, we were nominated the 616th fastest growing company with growth of over 900% in the year.
That feels so darn good, doesn't it?
Oh, it was a huge blessing.
It is an entrepreneur's fuel, man. That's what it is. It's a fuel in your tank when you get that. You really, because look, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, one of the things that kind of sucks is that you don't have someone telling you if you're doing a good job or bad job. No one is telling you that. If you have a job, there's always a boss or even a coworker that tells you, hey, listen, man, you really screwed that up. Or listen, man, you're doing a fantastic job. And you get, I'm doing a fantastic job. But as an owner of a business, no one is telling you that. So you go home, you're saying, I don't know, am I doing good? Am I doing bad? Am I doing decent or what? The thing that really tells you is the results. The results tell you exactly how you're doing. It's not a person that tells you, it's actually the actual results. What you just mentioned is exactly that. You're doing your work, and then all of a sudden you see that you're ranked. You're like, damn, what I did worked. And that's the crazy thing. So continue the whole Shark Tank story.
Yeah, so once the nomination happened, it was a big dream. I'm a believer in vision boards, right? And I remember I walked in a medical office that had the Inc. 5000 plaque. And I took a picture of it. And I printed that picture. And I was like, one day, All States Med is going to be an Inc. 5000 company as well. So I had that in the vision board. 2021, once we received the email saying, hey, you were nominated as one of the fastest growing companies. Few tears, happy
of
tears.
Course. Heck yeah.
Luckily, my mom was still alive and my father was also still alive. So
that's awesome.
I was able to share the news with them, and
That's
they were
awesome.
extremely happy. And I continued sending these emails to people. Hey, I know there's a niche here. Like, where can you get $5,000 and become one of the fastest growing companies in the nation? I know there's a niche. There's something special about this. And I kept on emailing and reaching out to these people. And then that's when Kevin Harrington, one of his staff members, reached back out and saying, Kevin is interested in hearing more. So that's when we started doing phone interviews and conferences, me explaining the business and what it entails and things of that nature. And he was like, hey, I want to be part of this. Let's work together. And we've been working together now for going on 3 years.
So Kevin is acting more like a partner with you today.
More of an advisor.
Advisor. He's one of the original Shark Tank guys.
He's the original.
He's the OG.
He's the OG. He's actually the inventor of the infomercial. So do you remember
Of course.
after a certain time
late
on
night.
TV, late
Yeah,
nights,
yeah.
that they would have the exercise
Yes,
equipment and things
yes,
of that
yes,
nature?
yes.
So what he told me the story personally, so I have to share it with you.
Please do.
He went to the TV stations and he's like, these channels are blank. There's nothing. How much can I buy this time for? And he rented that time where there was nothing on TV, and he's like, let's try to sell a product. So he was the first person to ever make a video to sell a product. So an infomercial. So he's the inventor of the infomercial.
That's crazy. I had no idea about that.
Yeah.
That's a great story, man. So is he still somehow benefiting from this invention, or just everybody else copied him and just basically took off, right?
I don't know. I didn't get there. I didn't ask him, but I'm pretty sure that I can get that question answered. He's a very cool guy. He's a very great person. Great person to work with, and overall great human.
Yeah,
It's a pleasure to have him on board.
It sounds like you've done all the right things, Joe. At what point was it in the process of starting your business, growing it and this and that, that you looked in the mirror? You woke up one day, you looked in the mirror, you're trying to brush your teeth, and you looked in the mirror and you said, I think I made it. Was there a day that made that happen?
When my mom got really sick and we had medical bills, and to have a home taker at home 24 hours to assist while I was able to work, and my father in Brazil, and I was able to help them and buy my father a property and take care of all of my mom's needs, that's where I looked in the mirror and I was like, this was your dream. This was your goal. Because I was very frustrated and sad and depressed through this ups and downs that, seeing both of them decaying little by little. So through all of those ups and downs is where I actually looked in the mirror and I was like, no, you have to be thankful. You have to be thankful that God has brought you to this position in which you're able to do what most people wouldn't be able to do, to afford $9,000 a month to take care of your mom, and to afford to send, $150,000 cash for your father to buy a property in Brazil and make his last dream come true. Because I specifically asked him, after the doctor said that he only had about 2 years left, cancer, is where I asked him, like, Dad, what would be your last wish? And that's when he's like, I would like to be closer to nature. And being able to fulfill his last wish and give my mom the comfort for her last year, that's where I knew that we actually made it. And yeah, it's been an amazing ups and downs through this Inc. 5000, through the growth. There's been a lot of family issues, as you can tell,
Of course.
happening. But I really learned how to redirect the pain into fuel, into not stopping, into not caving in, to going harder. And after they left and I didn't have these bills anymore, that's where I was like, wow, this is what financial freedom is all about. This is the blessing that they call the American dream, that so many people want and dream about, because we are in the greatest nation in the world. There's nothing like the United States. We are the pioneers of freedom. And to get an immigrant boy who came without speaking the language, without having support system, and watching his mom work at gas station jobs as a cashier, to be able to employ so many people and to have financial freedom for himself and being able to offer a completely different lifestyle for my kids now, it's truly a blessing. So I'm completely grateful to God first, my mom for bringing me to this country, and these opportunities that the United States have given me.
That was really touching, my good man. It really is touching. Your story is ridiculously good, and that's really my goal with this type of podcast, is to bring out the very best people that have made it from nothing to something, and that they have this compassion, they have this heart. This is not, a lot of people think business people are cruel, and we step over a lot of people to get to where we are. They don't realize that businessmen, no matter where they are in their journey, no matter how many millions they own, or no matter where they have, what they have achieved, the end of the day, they're humans. And at the end of the day, they have a family. And I know we talked about this earlier. Congratulations on your, newborn, your son. And I know how, and I've seen your posts. We'll talk about your, your Instagram in a little bit, but I've seen your posts. I know how much you care about this child. I know how much you care about your family, but at the same time, you have found a way to balance business with family, and that's really what it's all about. One of the things that I always tell people, I said, look, starting a business makes you one of the key advantage of starting a business, aside from potential of making money, is it makes you relevant, right? When I first came to the United States, I was 15 years old. I literally entered this country with $100 in my, not even $100 in my pocket, and that's all I had to my name. Middle of the 10th, 11th grade, and high school, got to get used to the whole high school thing. I don't speak English. It's middle of the school year. Came here in February, actually, and you have all of these obstacles, in front of you, but you know you have this drive, and at the time, my relevance was literally at zero. I always tell people, I said, if had I died when I came here, probably three people would have shown up to my funeral, if that many, right? But throughout the journey of entrepreneurship, you build yourself to be someone relevant, someone people actually care to hear from, care to learn from. And that relevance stays with you throughout your journey forever and ever and ever. You become that person. The expertise that you have gained in this business that you started, in the journey that you started, stays with you forever. And that makes you an expert in your field because, heck, I sit here, I have no idea how to open a business like yours, right? You are the expert in that field. So before we talk about franchising in a second, I just want to ask one last question about this journey again. I'm sure, as you climb the hill to success, there were times that there must have been at least once or twice that you fell down and got bloody and got bruised up. Was there a time that you said, I think this a mistake? I'm hurting a lot, or, I shouldn't have done this, or any of that. Was there a time that you had to really look in the mirror?
With the business itself, I never really had, I mean, I had difficult times, but it's always been a very prized possession. It's always been something that I valued a lot, that I was able to break free from an environment in which I wasn't being paid what was promised, and I was working on my own. I used to work as my first job. I was 14 years old. I was Color Me Mine, the little painting
Yeah,
pottery place.
it's a franchise.
Yeah, I used to grab the glaze, and I used to work there because somebody that I knew the manager, so she allowed me to work, but I wasn't supposed to. So I would grab the glaze after they paint and just put it in the oven so it can become shiny. So that was my first job. From then, I started working at Cheesecake Factory as a server. I worked Carpaccio as a busboy. I worked in Texas de Brazil serving steak. So I came from a restaurant background, working through school, working two shifts a day on the weekends so I wouldn't have to go to work during the week so I can focus on studies. So I've always valued all statesmen. I always valued being able to not have somebody above me and who's going to take money out of my check if I didn't show up, or if for example, when my nephew was born and I had given a 30-day notice, I was like, hey, I'm going to be there for the C-section. Having $1,000 taken out of your check when you didn't make $1,000 a day. So those things that I went through always made me value a lot the company itself. But life brought different circumstances that made me want to give up. That was like, hey, maybe you shouldn't be focused on the financial. Maybe you shouldn't be focused on working. Maybe you should just focus on the family. And I do want to say that behind every man, there's a strong woman. And I strongly believe in that. I'm very thankful for an amazing wife that I have. I am so thankful for my firstborn, Joven, and Jonah. He's 2 months old. My oldest is turning 7 next month, and my youngest is 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm extremely thankful for my boys. And I think that family is very important, to have a support system, Because when you're an entrepreneur and you go out there, there's going to be sticks and stones thrown at you. There's going to be ups and downs in business, in your personal life. A lot of your friends will turn their backs on you. You will become an ATM for a lot of people. A lot of people will just be interested in asking you for things. And having a good support system plays a big role. And being able to get up every day and roll up your sleeve and leave the house with a smile, not ever losing your essence, the person who you truly are, being kind to people, being grateful every day. And yeah, I'm very thankful to All States Med for the opportunity that is given me and my family. But I'm also extremely thankful for my family, who's been able to hold me down through the ups and downs of life.
That's fantastic, man. You know, that reminds me, there's success. I always say success is reaching the top of the hill. But notice the hill is very small on the top and a lot bigger on the bottom. So there's very little room up there. As you get up there in your journey, it's very little room for others to be around you. A lot of people feel like they're not at your level. A lot of people, like you said, you become a lot of people's ATM machines. And for that reason, a lot of people fall off, right? There's only so much room up there for, for people to be surrounding you. So everything you said is absolutely correct. When did you decide franchising is the way to grow your business?
The first stepping stone was making at least one sale to every state in the United States, right? As the business picked up and I started doing online marketing, we started selling all over. And I'm noticing a demand everywhere in every state. And then one sale in each state became 2 and 3 and 4. And then we're constantly having sales online. And I noticed how the market wasn't just for South Florida. There was a demand nationwide for the medical equipment that I was selling. And as we started to grow and hiring more people, I also started to have problems like most entrepreneurs have, is hiring people that are going to do what you're paying them to do, right? A lot of them are going to do the bare minimum, and some of them are not going to do what you're paying them to do. And then the rare ones are going to be the ones that go above and beyond. Those are very hard to find. Luckily now we have a very good team in-house that these people are amazing. They really go above and beyond for All States Med, and that's why they stuck with us for so long. But I started encountering this issue that, hey, if I'm going to hire a representative in Texas and he's getting paid and he's not producing, what is he really doing? Is he really visiting offices? All right, let's try to get reports. The reports were coming in and they weren't doing what they were getting paid to do. So I needed to find something that was going to change the dynamics of the business, in which I don't have to pay people to do what has to be done. So we considered first selling to private equity. And I thought it was a little too soon. I didn't want to go that route. I always said that All States Med, I wanted to have at least 1% of the medical industry. At least 1%. That's not asking for much. And we weren't there yet. So I knew there was a lot more growing to do before we consider going that route. And with the franchising opportunity, that's where people would pay me to be part of it. Yeah, I will lose a huge amount of the profits that comes in through those locations, but I'm getting paid to bring people on board. And if you're paying to do something, you're going to take it serious. So instead of me paying people to hope that they take this serious, we changed the dynamics to, if you want to be part of this, you pay to be on board, because the numbers don't lie, right? Where we are is proven. We've gotten here by extreme hard work, and we're a successful company. I'm completely satisfied with the income that we currently have and the properties that I own and everything, where I've achieved at such a young age. But the franchising just gives us a whole different dynamics for us to be in all states, having people who are willing to work, because we're not just selling franchises to anybody either. We are vetting these people out. Is this somebody who's really going to work? Is this somebody who's going to dedicate? Because it's not only about the money. It's about making it happen. You have to do the groundwork. You have to put in the effort. It's not like buying stocks that you can just put the money there and
That's
hope
right.
that it grows.
That's right.
When you own a business, when you own a franchise, you have to do the work as well. So I'm excited to work with people who want to grow because the opportunity is here. The market is here. We have everything. All we're missing is the people. So I'm reaching out to the people who really want to work, who really want to be part of the medical industry, and come learn because the proof is in the pudding.
And look, for people that are interested in buying a franchise, because look, again, I repeat what I said. I don't know how to start a business like yours. I have no idea. I've started a lot of businesses. I'm an advisor to 700 different companies, but I can never start a business like yours, right? So for me, just think for a second. If I were to start this business, I got to start off with, in a very competitive world, I need a nice logo. I need a nice website. I need a nice name. The name has to be trademarked. If you're doing it right, you have to trademark your name. I need brochures and I need pricing and I need this, that, and the other. Then I need employees who know how to fix this equipment that I'm purchasing from these doctors. I need so much to start on my own. And along the way, this is going to take me months to produce. And along the way, you make a whole lot of mistakes that cost you a whole lot of money. When they buy a franchise from you, they already got all of that. They've got the nice website. They've got the logo. They've got the trademark. They've got the brochures. They've got the know-how because you've already made those mistakes so that they don't make those mistakes. The mistake's already been made by someone else at their cost. So when you buy a franchise, the difference between you starting your own business and buying a franchise is that when you start your own business, you know there's going to be a lot of obstacles, chances of you losing a lot of money in the process and potentially going belly up is very high. And when you buy a franchise, you're piggybacking on that person's experience, however long and however many dollars they got to spend to get there. You're piggybacking on that and you're buying into that. And now you're a part of that growth and you're going to grow with everybody else. Another advantage here is that, there is a buying power. So when you are dealing with a vendor today that, you have one location or two location, the vendor's conversation with you is very different than you say, I have 100 locations, or 150 locations, or 75 locations. Whatever that price is that they're selling you that item is significantly lower. This is the reason why Subway can sell their subs for $5, and there's no way and any independent sub sandwich shop can offer you a 12-inch sub for $5. That's because their costs are so much less, right? So you're at a stage right now that you're selling franchise. So what I'm trying to say is that it makes a whole lot of sense for people to buy a franchise from you as opposed to even remotely try to attempt to start this. As a matter of fact, the Chamber of Commerce provides a very interesting statistic that says if you start a business on your own, you only have a 50% chance to be in business a year later, and only a 25% chance to be in business 5 years later.
Wow.
In other words, 75% of businesses that start today will be gone 5 years from now. Only 25% make it. Franchises, 92% make it 5 years out. This is the reason why, if anyone is interested in starting a business, it's by far better to buy a franchise. Yes, you have to pay something up front, but that significantly is less than all the mistakes and all the different things that can happen to you along the way. And that's the reason why people pay a franchise fee up front. So the people that buy this franchise, you're giving them a territory. And that territory, is it exclusive or is it not exclusive?
So I want to make a reference to what you said as well, right? On the Subway aspect. When you're entering the medical industry, it's a lot different than selling subs, though. It's not buying bread, 3, 4, 5 different types of bread, a few different types of meats and things of that nature. So the complexity of the industry is very difficult for you to learn the know-how on what to sell, what price to sell, what to buy, how to repair. And I can't think of one company off the top of my head in the United States that sells everything from brand new, used and refurbished, equipment categories from MRIs and CAT scans all the way down to exam tables and procedure chairs. I can't think of one. So the know-how that comes within owning an All States Med franchise is second to none. There's not a different option out there. And for you to learn the amount of equipment and categories and the maintenance and the repairs and the distribution lines and so on and so forth, it's extremely hard to enter. It's a very small niche industry that has a barrier of entry. Most manufacturers are driven to a certain sector. So they would focus on, let's say, surgical, and then some would focus on imaging, and then some would focus on diagnostics. Partnering with All States Med gives you access to all of the healthcare equipment. If not all, because there's always new things that come out and things of that nature, but 90% of the items available in the market will have access to it and distribution lines for it.
So
the territory,
territory, yes. Tell me about that.
Let me jump back into the territory. So each franchise location will have a protected territory, exclusive to them.
So someone buys a franchise from you. You're gonna put a map and say from this zip code to this zip code is all yours. You're gonna go and knock on every doctor's office doors, or you don't necessarily knock on doors, but you reach out to all of these doctors' offices. You provide the service, and immediately you have money coming in because the business is already there. It's not like you have to wait. My website is not ready, or this is. They buy a franchise from you. They come down. They get trained by you. They're in business.
Absolutely.
They can run this from home. They don't need an office or anything else, right?
No, they do need a warehouse, at least 1,500 square feet warehouse, in which is a commercial industrial plaza. It does not have to be on a main building. But we do require the 1,500 square feet in which we can build the biomedical department, in which we can do the repairs and maintenance of the equipment that is not done on site, the ones that we bring in-house. And so you can also recondition the equipment that's being bought on the day-to-day. So there will be a protected territory for each of the franchise. And I'll give you an example. The Boston location, before they acquired the warehouse, we already made sales for them because we started doing the marketing as soon as we finalized the deal. We started marketing online in that territory. So before they had a physical location, they were already receiving sales.
So these guys buy a franchise from you, and you're actually not only holding their hand, but they're actually putting money in their pocket. You're basically making the sales for them. Let me tell you something. I've, in my life, been involved in so many franchises, as you know, through the company Franchise Creator, of course, the company that franchise your business, Franchise Creator. But rarely ever I come across a business that is very clean operation, which is what yours is, incredibly clean operation. It's in with times, right? It's not like something incredibly outdated. You're not in the newspaper business, for example, right? Or even journalism. Everybody's a journalist today. That's going away, right? It's not a business that's affected by Amazon that can potentially, Amazon can, start, taking over this or anything. And more importantly, is not affected by AI, right? AI is a threat to a lot of businesses today. AI is a threat to medicine. AI is a threat to engineering, coding. 70% of the codes written today is done by AI. It's crazy. And I'm an engineer, so for me, this is incredibly, powerful. But this is what makes your business so superior, because whoever's buying into your business, this business is not going away. This business is not going to be affected by AI a year from now or 6 months from now. It's like haircut business. Somebody's got to cut hair at the end of the day. Somebody's going to have to repair this equipment from these doctors' offices. Somebody's got to sell them equipment. When you go to the doctor's office, you need the equipment that's there. So this is what makes your franchise incredibly unique. You said something very cool, and you said, we're being very selective about the franchisees we're getting. See, that to me is very powerful. Why? Because I always say when you're building a franchise system, it's like building a skyscraper. The first floor, the second floor, the third floor is incredibly important in how this skyscraper is standing up. If any of these floors are crooked, the whole skyscraper is going to fall down. Now, if your 50th floor happens to be a little bit crooked, that's a different story. The whole building is going to stand. People are going to laugh at, how that crooked that last floor is. But the first few franchises that come on really define the character and the culture of your franchise. As a matter of fact, McDonald's Big Mac was created by one of the early franchisees of McDonald's. They created that because Whopper had just come out, Burger King had just come up with Whopper, and they call it Whopper. It was a big, burger. Well, you can't make a burger bigger than a Whopper. I mean, at some point it becomes ridiculous. So what did they do? One of the franchisees decided, let's make it double decker burger, which is going to have this illusion that it is, a better, a bigger product, and it worked, right? At the end of the day, it's the illusion that matters. So same thing here, right? Your franchisees are going to have a voice. They're not, a lot of people think that they buy a franchise and they're just following a guideline. That is not at all the case. When they buy a franchise from an early franchisor, which is at this point what you are, they're going to have a direct contact with you. They're going to have your cell phone number. When you buy into a McDonald's or Subway, you're not going to have the CEO's cell phone number, but they have your cell number. They can text you on a weekend and say, look, I'm having this problem. What do you think? Or I have this idea. What do you think? And their idea is being heard and being implemented. And that's the difference between buying your franchise or something that's more established out there and has hundreds of locations.
So the franchise structure that we built is very unique in that aspect as well. Not only the direct access to the CEO, but the ongoing support that each of the franchisees are going to have. I'll give you another example. One of the franchisees reached out and they needed assistance during a repair. So they were able to do a video call right then and there with our technician to identify the issue. Order the correct part, the repair was done. So the support system that we have in place is not just a one-time, it's ongoing. So we'll give the franchisees support on the biomedical side. We'll give them support on the purchasing, because purchasing is very important. Purchasing, it's nearly half of the business. Because if you're purchasing it right, you're able to sell it right.
That's right.
And maximize.
You make money on the buying, not on the selling.
You make money in the buying.
Yeah.
So purchasing, assistance, when you're there, take a picture of the item, you send it to us. How much should I buy this for? How much should I offer? It's extremely important. Also, the pricing that we get, that's preferred pricing across a lot of the distribution channels that we have, and the support system on the selling. So being able to price the equipment out, to give the warranty, and to make the quotes, because a lot of times you're going to be requested for an item that you have no idea what it is. We're dealing with thousands of SKUs. So having the support system behind you to ask, hey, what is this? What are the options that we have? And what prices should we offer? That is extremely important. So the franchising structure that we have, it's really ongoing support. We really want each location to be successful, because not only it brings us royalties in the end of the day, but because it's our name. And we have a long-term goal for All States Med, and that includes every franchisee being successful. So it's very important to filter out. We've received over 4,000 inquiries in 2-3 months.
That's ridiculous, man.
It's a lot.
That's crazy.
It's a lot of people interested, and
that doesn't surprise me, but it's crazy.
Yeah, it's a blessing, but we do have to filter a lot, and that's exactly what we're doing. We're looking for people who are ready to work, that work with integrity, with honesty, and they're ready for hard work. Because the first 2 years has to be a lot of dedication. After a while, it becomes a snowball. The business starts to run on its own. But the first 2 to 3 years are crucial for the development, for you to meet your potential customers, for you to establish that presence locally, because you'll start getting referrals. And once the referrals kick in, the business starts running on its own. It's been over 4 years. The business has been operating for 8 years. And we're going on 4 years that I haven't visited doctors' offices, because it just takes off.
That's right. It gets into auto mode.
It goes into auto mode.
Yeah, whether you wake up or not, money's coming in.
Exactly. And I love when I'm home sleeping and I hear the ching on the phone.
It's a beautiful thing.
It's a beautiful thing.
It's a beautiful thing. It's called mailbox money. Absolutely. Keeps on coming.
And that is available for every franchisee. As their location is making sales, because each location is going to have geographic marketing for that location. It's mandatory a month for us to dedicate a certain percentage of sales towards geographic marketing. So these sales are going to happen as the franchisees are sleeping. They don't have to show up and open the door for Subway or McDonald's to sell a couple burgers. These sales are going to happen when they're out on the boat on the weekend,
That's
when
right.
they're sleeping, and on a day-to-day basis as well.
And that's the difference between your business and a retail business, right? A retail business, if you're not there, you're not making money. If the doors are closed, no one's coming in. In your business, you could be in bed, you could be in Hawaii, you could be on a cruise, and the money's coming in into your account. You can check your bank account, and bing, 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 it's going up all day, every day, which is a beautiful thing. One of the things that I want, one of the things that's as a key thing to when someone buys a franchise, sometimes they think that they're becoming an employee and they're paying a price to get in. Why would I do that to become an employee? One of the major differences between being an employee or a franchisee versus a business of an employee in a business. In a business, the success goes from the top to the bottom. In other words, if the business owner is successful and is making a lot of money, he's going to have more money to give to his employees, and employees become, obviously a little bit wealthier. But in a franchise environment, it works the other way around. It's a bottom-up type of a success flow, meaning that in order for you to be successful, your franchisees have to be successful. And you touched on that very, very rightfully. And that is, your goal is completely in line with making your franchisees successful. If your franchisees succeed, that means success for you. If your franchisees fail, that means failure for you, because the whole house of cards collapses, right? So you have this vested interest to help your franchisees succeed. When one of your locations is going bad, you're going to be on it like white on rice. You're going to be on it, making sure that that guy or that lady or that business owner is able to overcome the obstacles. Is a bad manager, is this, that, the other. You're going to be on the phone fixing the issue for that location to do well again. I have just a couple more questions and we can wrap this up. When a franchisee buys a franchise from you, how can they expand their business? How do they have a ceiling on their growth, or how can they grow?
So touching on the previous topic of making sure that the franchisees succeed, I've seen franchises that sold hundreds of units and had a huge percentage of closing after, in which they weren't giving the support system for the franchisees. And that's the complete opposite of what we're trying to do here. The goal is for All States Med to be publicly traded. We want to put it into the stock market in about 5 years from now, when we have X amount of locations, and each of these locations are going to be worth gold. So each of the franchisees who open the store now with about a $200,000 investment, they're going to be extremely happy when the time comes. And when it comes to ceiling, the medical industry doesn't really have a ceiling. There's equipment that ranges from $100 for like a thermometer all the way to $500,000 and up. So it really depends on which government agencies they can penetrate, which hospitals, which hospital groups, which doctor's offices, which doctor's office groups. So the potential really is endless. It's not, we like to underpromise and overdeliver. So what we say is, you will receive your money within a 2-year period. That's being very conservative. Worst case scenario, if you're not knocking on doors hard, if you're not really going above and beyond, you'll get your money back within 2 years, just because of the structure, the marketing, and the demands and the profit margins, right? So to answer...
That's fantastic.
Yeah, to answer the question...
That's crazy fantastic.
There isn't a cap. The potential really is endless.
But they can also buy an adjacent zip code or area. And in other words, somebody buys an area and you give them exclusive territory, they can say, listen, this thing is doing fantastic. I want bigger. I want more. They can buy the next territory and the next territory and the next territory, right?
We do have a multi-unit franchise structure.
Okay.
In which the franchisee does not have to go out of pocket immediately for, let's say, 5 locations. They pay 50% of all 5 locations and have to open 1 per year. So let's say you wanted all of South Florida, right? We have enough space to build 5 franchises. If you wanted all of it, you can open 1 a year, and you have exclusivity for any sales that happen within that territory before you even open the location.
That's
So
right.
you automatically have the exclusivity on the territory. South Florida's taken, by the way. But but yeah, so you can have one single unit franchise, a multi-unit franchise structure in which you pick the zip codes. As of now, we have a lot of metropolitan areas that are available.
I always recommend people that are looking to buy into a franchise. I say, look, more than anything, is the person behind the brand that you should concentrate on researching as opposed to the brand itself. Obviously, you want to get into something you like and you enjoy, and the numbers have to be right. But what's the person behind the brand, in this case, you, Joe, play a pivotal role in the selection process for a franchisee, should play a pivotal role because they're going to be partners with you for a number of years. This is not a 6-month journey. This is not a 3-month journey. You're building a business. It's you're putting a business together that's going to feed your family for the number of years to come, and that partnership is very important. So for me, when I have this conversation with you in the last number of whatever minutes, an hour that we've been talking, for me, the idea is really to portray the real image of Joe. You're a family guy. You started from the bottom. It's not a handout type of situation. You came from nowhere. You had some hardship in your life, and then you made it all happen in spite of those hardships. And that's what I said earlier, is that you fall, you bruise yourself, you bleed, and you continue going. You are the guy that's at the top of the hill because of your persistence and your consistency in what you're doing, right? So I applaud you for who you are. And again, people that are looking to buy a franchise, this is the type of person they should be partnering with, because you want a nice guy that's going to take your call on a Saturday. You want a nice guy that cares. You want a nice guy that's in the business, because when you ask him a question, he's going to have an answer for you. This is the guy that's going to have an answer for you. He's not a guy that's on the golf course playing golf and he hasn't touched this business for the last 5 years. He doesn't know. I don't know about that equipment. Call so and so. I'm about to hit this shot here. That's not you. You're the guy that's hands-on. So when they ask a question, they're asking a mentor, they're asking a coworker, they're asking a person that has experience in the field, and that's the difference. So my final question: is there an individual that you look up to as a mentor and say, this is the guy, whether it's a person, a family guy, a businessman, anybody that you look up to and say, this is the guy that you consider your mentor?
I unfortunately don't have a mentor. I would have liked one. I'm pretty sure it would have made me excel faster, but I don't. The mentor that's guided my life has been Jesus.
There you go.
I'm a big believer in Jesus Christ, and having that faith helped me overcome all of the struggles and the battles and the ups and downs. But I do have a role model, and that role model is my mother. I admire her endurance, her courage of moving to a country without speaking the language, having 2 kids, working 16-hour shifts, always smiling, giving me the best advice. She could have turned back and gone back to Brazil to live with her family, but she persisted, and she opened the doors of the United States for us. So my mother is by far my biggest role model, and I love her to death. And I wish she was here watching, but I know she's in a good place. So yeah, that's
Well, you gave me goosebumps, my friend. You really did.
me too.
Yeah.
I'm holding so I don't tear over here.
You really did, man. You look, and that's what I meant. That this is the guy they're partnering with. This is who you are. You're very true. You're very true to your ethics. You're very true to your family, and business is money, and money is always replaceable. What is not replaceable is the people you touch and people that touch you. And that's, at the end of the day, that's why we're on this earth, right? It's no one is going to count the dollars when you leave. but they're going to count the number of people that cared for you when you were alive and you were actually around, and the number of people that you helped. And again, this process of business, you're helping people. You're getting people to be independent, to be successful. So if you can, please, for the camera, just let the audience know how they can get in touch with you. If they're interested in this franchise, partnering with you, investment, anything, how can they get a hold of you?
Well, you can definitely reach out to franchise creators directly. They have a phenomenal team. We've been working with them for nearly a year now, and they have an amazing team available around the clock. So you can definitely reach out to them directly, or you can visit Allstate SMED's website and reach out through the forms. We are excited to hear from hardworking individuals who are seeking an opportunity to start their own business and to partnering with a family-owned company that holds certain principles and moral ethics as a priority. We don't prioritize the sales. We believe in helping each other. I have a quote that I created myself, which is that Allstate SMED is a believer business, believer in a higher power, in loving our neighbor, and in only doing win-win business deals. And that's the rule that I live by, and that's the same type of person you would meet once you join the Allstate SMED family.
Thank you for that, Joe. That was very, very, very nice. I appreciate having this conversation with you in the last hour or so, and it was truly, truly touching to hear your story. It kind of reminded of of where I came from and how I got to where I'm at. And I appreciate you, man. And best of luck to you. All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
It's
Joe.
a pleasure working with you, Hossein. You're an amazing person, and it's an honor to have you on board as well.
If you find value in what we share, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your fellow business owners. Go big or go home. Thanks for tuning in.